Sometimes I start working on different projects and they only get a little bit of attention before moving on to something else. This is my box of half-started projects, and I'll be resurrecting a project from here to work on. I chose these simple clay-made sandbags. They're going to be the catalyst for the build. Battle of Stalingrad took place in the autumn of 1942. The Soviet Red Army was charged with the monumental task of defending the city from Hitler's 6th Army. It had been bombed by the Luftwaffe into ruins, and the fighting had taken to the streets, house to house, and trenches dug into the very rubble of the city that once stood. We're going to use this setting, this sentiment, and this aesthetic to drive the direction of the terrain piece we are building today. These simple pieces of wargaming scatter terrain are versatile, simple to make, and look fitting in a wide range of applications, from Warhammer 40,000 to Zone Alpha. We're starting by using these sandbags. I made these a while ago from clay, rolled it out into a sausage, and then cut out individual chunks and layered them on top of each other with PVA glue. Following Terrain Tutor's tutorial on this a while back, and they have just been sitting in my bookcase. I'm taking vinyl tiles as the base. I have a bunch of these left over and they make good basing material. They're heavy and slightly flexible, easy to cut, and the adhesive side lets me stick XPS foam down very easily and securely. I cut out a natural looking shape in the middle with a pair of tin snips. The leftover bits are going to be used as well. This has the added bonus that I can then combine them to form a rough square if I choose to, symbolizing a destroyed building. It's all about what's implied here. All I do is clean up the edges a little to give some more organic shapes rather than the hard angles I get from the first cut. And now I'm peeling off the paper to reveal the adhesive side. Now this is the backside of an art drawing pad. It's called chipboard here in North America, and it can be purchased individually too. It's basically a thicker cardstock that makes for an excellent crafting material. I'm cutting out some 2.5-inch parts, which will be my wall sections. I'm then using some of this 1.5-inch XPS foam. I got a large sheet from the hardware store, and these are just some scraps that were left over from my cathedral build. This will go where I want the raised areas of the rubble to go, and I'm going to try and keep them mostly flat, so that miniatures can sit comfortably on top. Hit that like button if you're a fan of this type of scatter terrain. Now, other than the initial layout, I don't have a hard plan here. I'm just putting parts as it makes sense to me. The flat sides of the base will get a wall section from the chipboard, and these will be the recognizable walls amongst the rubble. Just using some PVA glue to keep these in place attached to the XPS foam. I then also bevel some of the sides of the XPS foam to make for some ramps. For the central platform, I had a bit of a constraint due to the sandbags. I'm going to have 2 ramps coming up from the front and the back side. So I cut out a chunk of XPS foam with my utility blade here. It's super easy to cut and it doesn't need to be clean. We're going to be layering lots of things on top to smooth it out later. You can see here I'm dry fitting the sandbags until I find the right place to put them. The rough shapes are done at this point, and you can see that they will be quite versatile in the way that they can be arranged. Using some scissors, I cut out some of the chipboard to make the walls look like they've been crumbled from damage. At this point, I thought it would look neat to have some sort of floor tiles that overhang the main rubble, creating a little bit of a darkened area at the base. I'm using dollar store foam core board here and cutting 2x2 tiles to glue down with some PVA glue. Some of the tiles get broken up by hand, creating a free cracked and destroyed look. There's no wrong method here. Also using the foam core to make these pillars, spaced evenly 2 inches apart on the outside of the building. This sort of repeating pattern will be juxtaposed with the chaotic rubble we will be adding to the base. We want to give the image that there was once order to this otherwise organic looking piece. This is one of the reasons I really like making ruined scatter terrain and ruined buildings. You get to practice both the geological, organic, natural look of cliffs, as well as the structured and ordered look of man-made structures of intelligent design. I've actually got a ton of leftover bricks from some of my previous builds, so I'm adding them to the base here to use some of them up, as well as give off a great looking rubble detail. I'm going to be layering more and more material to build this up. Eileen's tacky glue is superior here over regular PVA. Since it's not runny, you can put a few specks on and then stick the SPS foam on top without any drips to worry about. It's worth buying this in bulk if you know you're going to use it. To To make some of this rebar detail, I cut out some small lengths of garden wire from the dollar store. These just get stabbed into the foam core tiles with a little bit of PVA glue to hold them in place. You want to go for a semi-regular distance between rebar here, since in regular construction, these get evenly spaced. Order among chaos. Here's what we have so far. It's looking great. From here, we're really going to punch up the realism with some more materials. Let's make some sculpting paste. This is cellulose insulation in a 10 kilogram bag, very cheap. This is a bag of 45-minute drywall mud. Comes in powder form and has to be mixed with water to work. You can experiment with different ratios here. You can make a very watery mixture and the paste will be very easy to paint on, but will be quite runny. Or you can add lots of drywall powder and not a lot of water to make a thick paste. Then, by adding a good mix of cellulose, it will give it more strength and volume, at the cost of some lumpier sections. I want a lumpy mixture for getting the corners all filled up with rubble. I'm using my hands and a small plaster knife here to get this all in places where it makes sense. As I said before, I want the tops to remain mostly flat for playability. After about 20-30 minutes, you can come in with a wet finger and smooth out any of the edges that you want, or even remove sections that look out of place. It depends on the look you want to get here. For me, I want to keep some of the rough texture made by the plaster, so I don't go overboard smoothing it all out. If I was making a hill with dirt on it, I would smooth it out more. At this point, I also glued the sandbags in place with some PVA glue and left all the pieces to dry for several hours. To make some large sections of rubble, I spread a thick mixture of leftover drywall mix on some parchment paper. After it dried, I can break this apart with my hands or with a hammer to get these realistic pieces of concrete. I'm taking some time to form mounds of large sections to the back and front side of the sandbag section. This will form a natural ramp on the back as well. And then coming in with some very coarse gravel, add watered down PVA glue and spread it in all the corners and edges in places where larger pieces of rubble would meet the flat ground. I'm being very selective on where I add this texture in, as I don't want to just coat the whole piece in this texture. It'll look odd. Alright, now I pull out an old bag of leftover tile grout. I'm sprinkling this on all the parts I had layered up. This won't stick down by itself and needs to be activated with water. I got a pack of these syringes with a plastic tip on Amazon. They are superior in my opinion to dropper pipettes, since I can control exactly how much liquid to dispense. And by cutting the tip on several of them, I can get a variable size stream as well. Using one of these syringes, I hydrate all of the tile grout so that it can set. I let it get a bit runny too, so that it carries the grout into areas it would want to run from gravity. I'm washing my workstation at this point thoroughly before we proceed. The last couple steps made a lot of mess. I'm also adding this little 3D printed barrel before painting it. I'll be using this piece for placing a flag mount, which could serve as an interesting objective if needed. Oh, another random quick tip here. I got these pencil erasers from the dollar store, and they make excellent caps for all my glue bottles, which I always lose the caps to. They are slightly flexible, so I'm able to push fit them on most bottles to give an airtight seal, and they're easier to take off than the plastic caps, since the glue usually just peels off of them easier. Now, my shipment of black acrylic gesso arrived while building this, and I was excited to start using it. I ordered this 1-gallon bucket, which will take me a long time to use up, but the price was fantastic. It's way cheaper than house paint as well. I gave it a good mix before using it. Gesso is typically made up of rabbit skin glue, chalk, and pigment. In this case, it's black. Reading more about this version, it's advertised as acrylic gesso, not just gesso. Reading the wiki page, it tells me it's technically not gesso at all, as it contains some acrylic resin dispersed in water, and is more flexible and non-absorbent than gesso. Well, lesson learned. It's going to work fine for my application here, but if you're trying to do any leopard spotting, it wouldn't work as well. I thinned it slightly on application as I didn't want to oversaturate the piece and hide all the details. And I ended up doing 2 coats, with the second coat mostly focused on areas I missed on the first pass. It was really hard filming it at this point since the camera had trouble getting the right exposure on the black base coat. After that had some time to dry, I came in with an airbrush and sprayed titanium white ink as a Zenithal Prime. That's just a fancy way of saying we're gonna get the brightest spots highlighted, like the sun would hit it at its zenith, and that's the highlights you would see. To add a bit of color, I came in with a burnt umber ink on some of the spots, and then I tint it to be a bit lighter brown in some other spots. This is going to give us a nice base gradient to work with going forward. Switching to a brush next, I mix some slightly bluish gray to go on all the rocky concrete. And then I come in with some tan for the sandbags and some green for the barrel. I'm mostly using this makeup brush for painting at this stage, since it has a lot of bristles and gets good coverage without having to constantly get new paint on it. Said I wanted a flag to go onto the main section, so I printed out a design on my regular printer in color. I proceeded to cut it out with an X-Acto blade. I left these two tabs on one side so that they can easily let me wrap it around the pole. After ripping up one side of it to fray the edge, I coat the flag in some watered down PVA glue, and then stipple on various weathering powders and washes. Once the glue dries, the flag will be very stiff, so it's good to bend it into the shape you want at this stage. This terrain piece serves as a shout out to Matt Dutton for the support on Patreon. Thanks, Matt. I also picked out some of the brick rubble in this red color to give it just a little bit more detail. Then came in with a dark wash all over the terrain and some more weathering powders made from pastels, layered on top of the sandbags. Let's quickly hop outside to clear coat these in some matte varnish, and we can call these done. These final stages aren't totally necessary, and truth be told, they don't make a stark difference over stopping at the dry brushing and wash stage. But it's fun to experiment and see what new techniques and effects you can achieve with some more effort. These small pieces of scatter terrain will go a long way and get a ton of use in my games, and I hope I've inspired you to make a set of your own. See you next time.